Tell us, Mr. SEO, are you truly capable of leading this company? The question slices through the boardroom like a blade dipped in formality and venom. Junho sits at the head of the glass table, hands interlaced, dark sunglasses reflecting the cold LED lights above. 23 board members. 32 eyes trained on him. He doesn't need to see them to feel the weight of their collective doubt pressing against his chest like a concrete slab. The air conditioning hums. Someone shifts in their leather chair, the sound of expensive fabric against expensive leather. A pen clicks. Once. Twice. Nervous energy disguised as impatience. Junho tilts his head slightly toward the voice. Park Sung-jin, his uncle, chairman of the board, the man who has been circling him for 5 years, like a vulture waiting for the final breath. Capable? Junho's voice is calm, surgical. Lumina Technologies posted a 43% growth in assistive tech revenue last quarter. Our neural prosthetics division secured contracts with 3 international governments. I believe the numbers speak louder than conjecture. Sung-jin doesn't flinch. Numbers can be managed by competent staff. Leadership requires vision. And vision, nephew, requires sight. The room temperature drops 10 degrees. Several board members look down. Uncomfortable. But not uncomfortable enough to speak. Junho's jaw tightens imperceptibly. He knows this play. He's been waiting for it since the moment his uncle called this emergency session. Since the leaked emails started appearing in business journals. Since the whisper campaign began in the hallways. Can he really lead? Is it fair to the shareholders? What happens when the markets lose confidence? Then let me show you vision, Junho says, reaching into his jacket pocket. He pulls out a folded document and slides it across the table with precision. It lands exactly in front of Sung-jin. The Patterson Report. Independent audit of every strategic decision made in the last 5 years. Mine versus the board's recommendations. My decisions? 78% success rate. The board's? 41. Silence. The kind of silence that precedes earthquakes. Sung-jin picks up the document with 2 fingers, as if it might contaminate him. His eyes scan the first page, then the second. A muscle in his temple twitches. This is proof, Junho finishes. That what you see as disability, the market sees as irrelevant. What matters is results. And I deliver. The door opens. Everyone turns. A woman walks in, beige trench coat over a black silk blouse, tablet pressed against her chest like armor, dark curls with subtle golden streaks catching the overhead light. Her eyes sweep the room with the precision of someone who has walked into 100 war zones and survived them all. Zuri Maddox. Junho hears her footsteps, 3-inch heels on marble. Confident, unhurried. The slight catch in her breath when she realizes the room is fuller than she expected. He knows that walk. He knows that breath. His heart stops. Apologies for the interruption, Zuri says, her voice steady, professional, the voice she uses when she's about to dismantle someone's entire strategy in 3 sentences. I'm Zuri Maddox, crisis mediator. I was called in by the board to assess the current leadership situation and provide an independent... She stops mid-sentence. Because Junho has turned toward her. Fully. Precisely. The way he always does when he's tracking a sound that matters. And even through the dark lenses, she knows. She knows the angle of his jaw. The way his mouth curves just slightly at the left corner. The way he holds his shoulders. Straight but not rigid. Powerful but not aggressive. He's the man from the rooftop. The man who asked her to describe the sunset 3 weeks ago without using the word beautiful. The man who listened to her paint the sky in words and thanked her for lending him her eyes without treating him as less. The man who never told her his last name. Who never mentioned he ran a billion-dollar conglomerate. Who let her believe he was just someone who liked sunsets and good conversation. The man who never told her he was Seo Junho, president of Lumina Technologies, billionaire, the very person she was hired to save. or Barry. Junho's lips curve into the smallest, most dangerous smile. "Ms. Maddox," he says quietly, his voice cutting through the tension like silk over steel. "I've been waiting for you." The boardroom holds its breath. Sungjin leans back in his chair, eyes narrowing as they flick between Junho and Zuri, a predator sensing opportunity. "Do you two know each other?" Zuri's fingers tighten on her tablet. Her mind races. If she says yes, she's compromised. If she says no, she's lying. If she hesitates, she's both. Junho doesn't break his focus from her direction. The entire room, 23 board members, 4 lawyers, 2 executives, and 1 very calculating uncle, waits for her answer. If a sunset can rewrite your entire life, what happens when the stranger who asked you to describe it turns out to be the man you were hired to destroy or save? This is the story of 2 people who met in the space between sky and empire. Subscribe and stay with us, because we're about to show you how far a single conversation can take 2 people who were never supposed to meet. This is just the beginning. 3 weeks earlier, Zuri didn't come to Seoul looking for magic. She came because her company sent her to mediate a hostile acquisition that was eating itself from the inside, and because the hotel rooftop was the only place in this vertical city where she could breathe without swallowing corporate smog. The Hangang complex rooftop was open to guests, a rare luxury in a city where every square meter costs a fortune. Concrete parapet worn smooth by years of hands gripping it. Potted plants that somehow survived the pollution, their leaves thick with resilience. A view of the Han River cutting through steel and glass like a vein of light, reminding everyone that nature existed here first. She leaned against the edge, letting the wind pull at her coat, letting the noise of the city below fade into white noise. 3 meetings today. 4 crises. 0 solutions. The client kept lying about their financial projections. The numbers didn't match the narrative. And the lead negotiator had the emotional intelligence of a filing cabinet. She was tired. Not sleepy tired. Soul tired. The kind of tired that comes from spending 10 years watching powerful people destroy things for profit and calling it strategy. Her phone buzzed. Another email. Another crisis. Another request for her to fix what someone else broke. She silenced it. That's when she heard it. The sound here changes when the sun goes away. Zuri turned. A man stood near the far corner, hands in his pockets, face tilted toward the horizon as if he were reading it like Braille. Charcoal suit, no tie. White shirt open at the collar. Dark sunglasses, even though the sun was already bleeding into the skyline, painting everything in shades of amber and regret. He didn't look at her, didn't move toward her, just stood there, listening to something she couldn't hear. "Does it?" Zuri asked before she could stop herself. He smiled. Minimal, like he'd been waiting hours for someone to respond. The wind changes pitch. The traffic below shifts tone. Birds stop. The city exhales. You can feel it before you see it. "I can see it," Zuri said, "but I never thought about hearing it." He turned his head slightly in her direction. "Then maybe you're missing half the world." She should have walked away. She had emails, calls, a briefing document that needed 3 more revisions before tomorrow's bloodbath of a meeting. She had a life that didn't include conversations with strangers on rooftops. But something in the way he stood there, still, unbothered, as if he had all the time in the universe, made her stay. Maybe it was the way he tilted his head. Maybe it was the way he smiled like he'd found something rare. Maybe it was just that she was tired of performing competence, and this man wasn't asking her to perform anything at all. "Do you want me to tell you how it looks right now?" she asked. He paused, considered. Then, "Only if you can do it without using the word beautiful." Challenge accepted. Zuri looked at the sky. Really looked. Not the glance you give between emails, not the quick check you make while crossing streets, but the kind of looking that requires you to stop performing your own life for 30 seconds and actually exist in it. "The sky is holding fire with silk gloves," she began slowly, tasting each word. Gold layered on pink, layered on something that hasn't decided if it's orange or red yet. The clouds have edges like someone took a paintbrush dipped in light and touched them in secret, just once, just enough. There's this part near the horizon that's shy, pale, almost apologetic. But if you wait, if you give it time, it gets braver, bolder. He tilted his head. Is it leaving fast or lingering? Lingering. Like it's trying to remember something before it goes. Like it knows this is the last time. Is there any part of the sky that seems afraid to disappear? Zuri blinked. No one had ever asked her that. No one asked questions like that. Questions that required you to see emotion in nature, to find fear in color. She looked again, searched, found it. Yeah, right above the river. There's this sliver of light that's holding on, even though everything around it is giving up. It's stubborn, like it refuses to believe the day is over. He laughed. Soft. Real. The kind of laugh that comes from recognition, not politeness. Stubborn light. I like that. They stood in silence as the last thread of gold dissolved into indigo. As the city lights began to flicker on below, one by one, like stars deciding to try. When it was over, he extended his hand in her general direction. Jun-ho. She took it, warm, firm, steady. The handshake of someone who meant it. Zuri. Thank you, he said. For what? For lending me your eyes without treating me as less. And then he was gone. Folding cane tapping lightly against concrete as he walked toward the exit, navigating the rooftop with the confidence of someone who'd memorized every step. Zuri stood there alone, the city lights beginning to pulse below, and felt something dangerous bloom in her chest. The feeling that she had just met someone who could rewrite everything. The feeling that for the first time in 3 years, since her mother died, since she stopped looking at sunsets because they hurt too much, she wanted to see the world again. She shook it off. She had a job, a life, a return flight in 2 weeks. She didn't have time for strangers on rooftops. She didn't have time for feelings. But the feeling didn't leave. It followed her through the next 3 days of negotiations. Through the coffee shop where she worked at 6 a.m. Because jet lag was a liar and sleep was optional. Through the second rooftop visit she told herself was coincidence. Just checking if the sunset looked the same. Just needing air. He wasn't there. She told herself it was better that way. One conversation. One moment. That's all it was. That's all it could be. On day 7, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Seoul area code. Ms. Maddox, we have an urgent situation. Lumina Technologies. Major internal crisis. The board has requested you specifically. Can you be here tomorrow, 9 a.m.? Zuri stared at the message. Lumina Technologies. She knew the name. Assistive tech giant. Billion-dollar valuation. Recent scandals about leadership instability, board conflicts, stock price manipulation. She'd read the articles, seen the headlines. She replied, I'll be there. She didn't know yet that tomorrow morning she would walk into a glass room and see the man from the rooftop sitting at the head of the table. She didn't know that Jun-ho had asked Min-seo to find out who she was the day after their first meeting. She didn't know that he'd requested her specifically. That he'd convinced the board she was the only mediator capable of handling the crisis. She didn't know that this was never coincidence. It was a trap. Or a plea. Or both. The Lumina Technologies headquarters occupied floors 40 through 53 of the Gangnam Financial Tower. All glass. All light. All power. The kind of building that made you feel small the moment you walked through the revolving doors. Zuri walked in at 8:47 a.m., tablet under her arm, heels clicking against Italian marble that probably cost more per square foot than her monthly rent. The lobby was minimalist luxury. White stone, black metal. A massive digital wall displaying real-time data from assistive technology centers around the world. Manila, Nairobi, Lima, São Paulo. Every screen showing lives being changed. A young woman in a graphite suit and gold-rimmed glasses met her at reception. Ms. Maddox, I'm Min Seo Park, Executive Secretary to President Seo. Please follow me. Min Seo moved like a soldier in corporate camouflage, efficient, silent, eyes scanning everything. She led Zuri through corridors lined with awards, patents, photos of ribbon cuttings and smiling children wearing neural prosthetics. Photos of Jun-ho shaking hands with presidents and activists, always in dark glasses, always with that small, controlled smile. They stopped in front of a frosted glass door. Conference room, Min Seo's hand hovered over the handle. She looked at Zuri with an expression that was half warning, half apology, all calculation. He's complicated, Min Seo said quietly. But he's not what they'll try to make you believe. Before Zuri could ask what that meant, Min Seo opened the door. The room was pure glass and tension. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul. A long table made of black stone that reflected the overhead lights. 23 people in tailored suits, arranged like chess pieces. Lawyers with leather briefcases. Board members with expressions like knives and silk sheaths. Executives who looked at her like she was either salvation or threat, and they hadn't decided which yet. And at the head of the table, facing the door, backlit by the city skyline, Jun-ho. Dark suit, white shirt, no tie. Sunglasses that reflected her own shocked face back at her. He turned his head toward her, with that same precise tilt from the rooftop. The tilt that said he knew exactly where she was, exactly how she sounded, exactly what her presence meant. And smiled. Not the corporate smile. Not the smile you give strangers in boardrooms. The smile that said, I knew you'd come. The smile that said, I've been waiting. Zuri's heart slammed into her ribs like it was trying to escape. He stood. The room stood with him. Automatic deference, the kind you can't teach. The kind that comes from genuine respect or genuine fear. Ms. Maddox, Jun-ho said, his voice carrying across the room like a blade wrapped in velvet. Thank you for coming on such short notice. She couldn't speak. Her throat had closed. Her professional mask, the one she'd worn for 10 years, the one that never cracked, was fracturing. He walked toward her. No cane. He'd memorized this room. Every step was confident, exact, the walk of someone who owned the space even when he couldn't see it. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something clean and expensive, close enough that she could see her reflection in his lenses. You described the sunset as if the world was still worth it, he said quietly, just loud enough for the room to hear. I waited all week to hear your voice again. The room froze. Someone's pen stopped mid-note. A laptop screen dimmed into sleep mode. The air conditioning seemed louder. A man in his late 50s, silver hair slicked back with precision, expensive suit with a burgundy tie, expression of controlled fury, leaned forward. Do you already know each other? Jun-ho turned toward the voice. Uncle, this is Zuri Maddox, the mediator you insisted we hire. And yes, we've met. Park Sung-jin's eyes flicked between them like a predator calculating distance to prey, weighing angles of attack. Conflict of interest, Sung-jin said smoothly, voice like oil. If there's a prior relationship, Ms. Maddox cannot remain objective. This entire engagement is compromised before it begins. Zuri found her voice, forced it steady. There is no conflict. We spoke once, briefly, on a hotel rooftop. It has no bearing on my professional assessment. Briefly? Sung-jin smiled, thin, sharp, a smile that cut. Then you don't know who he is. I know he's your president, Zuri said, meeting his eyes. And that this company is hemorrhaging value because someone inside is leaking strategic intelligence to tank your stock price. That's why I'm here, not to debate personal history. The room shifted. Lawyers exchanged glances. A board member coughed. Jun-ho's smile deepened just slightly. Please, Ms. Maddox, sit. She did, across from him, close enough to see her reflection in his lenses, close enough to feel the weight of 23 people watching her every move. Min-seo placed a file in front of her. Zuri opened it. Internal emails, board meeting transcripts, stock price charts that looked like a slow-motion avalanche, profit margins circling the drain. "Someone is sabotaging us from within," Junho said, his voice calm, factual. "And I need you to find out who before they succeed in removing me from this company." Zuri looked up. "Why me?" "Because you see things others don't," Junho said. "You proved that on the rooftop." Sungjin stood abruptly. "This is unacceptable. I'm calling for an emergency vote to suspend this engagement until—" "Sit down, Uncle." Junho's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. The board voted to hire Ms. Maddox. Unanimous decision. She stays. Unless you'd like to override that vote and explain why to our shareholders. Sungjin sat, but his eyes promised war. The meeting continued for another 90 minutes. Financial reports, legal briefs, questions that were really accusations. Zuri took notes, asked clarifying questions, maintained professional distance. But the whole time, she felt Junho's attention on her. Not looking, he couldn't look, but listening. Tracking. Knowing. After the meeting, Zuri cornered Min-seo in the hallway outside the conference room. "He set this up, didn't he?" Min-seo didn't deny it, didn't even pretend to be surprised by the question. "He asked me to find out who you were after the rooftop. I gave him your name, your firm, your record. He requested you specifically." "Why?" Min-seo looked at her with something close to desperation. "Because in 5 years, you're the first person who looked at him and saw a man. Not a president. Not a disability, not a headline, just someone." Zuri's chest tightened. "He lied to me." "He omitted," Min-seo corrected gently. "It's not the same." "It's close enough." Min-seo stepped closer, lowering her voice. "He's in danger, Ms. Maddox. Real danger. Not stock prices and board votes. Actual physical danger. And I can't protect him alone." "He from who?" Min-seo glanced back toward the conference room, where Sungjin was visible through the glass, speaking intensely to 2 other board members. "From the people who want him to disappear." Zuri didn't go back to the rooftop. She told herself it was because she didn't have time. 3 days into the investigation, she'd uncovered a trail of anonymous stock sales, shell companies routing money offshore, and board members who flinched when she asked the right questions. But the truth was simpler. She was afraid. Afraid that if she saw Junho outside that glass fortress, outside the armor of boardrooms and titles, she'd forget that he was a client. That he'd lied, or omitted, whatever semantic shield he wanted to hide behind. That she had a job to do and feelings were gasoline on a professional fire. She'd seen colleagues destroy careers over less. Seen mediators lose credibility because they got emotionally involved. Seen empires crumble because someone put heart over strategy. She wouldn't be that person. On day 4, he found her anyway. She was in the archives, basement level 2, records dating back 20 years, dust and fluorescent lights and the smell of old paper. The kind of place where truth hid in paper trails and forgotten email servers. She didn't hear him come in. "You're avoiding me." Zuri spun. Junho stood in the doorway. No sunglasses for the first time since the rooftop. Cane folded in his hand. His eyes were dark, unfocused, but somehow aimed right at her soul. "I'm working," she said. "You haven't been to the rooftop. Neither have you." He smiled sadly. "I went every night this week. You weren't there." Her throat tightened. She set down the file in her hands. "Junho, I should have told you who I was," he said, stepping into the room, navigating around the filing cabinets with precision. "I know that. But if I had, you would have seen the empire instead of the man, the president instead of the person. And I needed someone to see me first. Just once." Zuri pressed her palms against the table. "You hired me under false pretenses. I hired you because you're the best. Because you have a 92% success rate in corporate mediations. Because 3 different CEOs told me you saved their companies. The rooftop was separate. It's not separate. It's leverage. Whether you meant it that way or not. It's not. His voice cracked, just slightly, just enough. It's the only real thing I've had in 5 years. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. Wanted to believe that the man on the rooftop was real and the president was the mask, not the other way around. But she'd been in this business too long. She knew how men like him operated, how power bent the truth into whatever shape it needed, how billionaires collected people like art, beautiful, useful, disposable. I can't do this, she said. If there's any personal entanglement, it compromises my credibility. The board will use it against you, against both of us. Your uncle is already looking for weaknesses. Junho nodded slowly. Then we make it professional. Strictly. No rooftops, no sunsets. You do your job, I do mine. We keep distance. Agreed. He turned to leave. Stopped at the door. For what it's worth, Zuri, you were right. About what? The stubborn light. The part of the sky that holds on even when everything else gives up. He paused. That's you. He left before she could respond. And Zuri stood there in the basement, surrounded by old files and older ghosts, wondering if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. The leak was a ghost. Every time Zuri got close, it vanished into smoke and mirrors. Anonymous email accounts that routed through proxies in 3 countries. Burner phones registered to shell corporations. Offshore servers that looped back to dead ends. But ghosts left footprints if you knew where to look. On day 9, working past midnight in an empty office with nothing but coffee and spreadsheets for company, she found one. A single email thread buried in the server logs, hidden behind encryption that wasn't quite sophisticated enough. Subject line: Q3 projections, confidential. Recipient: an encrypted address that bounced through Singapore, the Cayman Islands, and Hong Kong before landing in a private equity firm notorious for hostile takeovers and activist investing. The same firm that had been shorting Lumina's stock for 6 months. Zuri cross-referenced the sender's login times with building security footage. Pulled access logs. Matched keycard swipes with timestamps. 3 people had access to that account with the necessary clearance. One of them was James Kang, Junho's lawyer, his college friend. The man who sat beside him in every board meeting and whispered strategy into his ear. Zuri's stomach dropped. She triple-checked the data. Ran it 4 different ways. The pattern held. She went to Minseo first. Minseo's office was dark except for a single desk lamp. She looked up when Zuri walked in, expression instantly alert. What did you find? James. Zuri set her laptop on the desk, turned it around. He's the leak. Minseo's face went pale. Actually pale. Are you sure? The login times match his keycard swipes. He's the only one with motive, access, and the technical knowledge. And look at this. She pulled up another screen. He has offshore accounts, 3 of them, receiving payments from the same Hong Kong firm that's shorting the stock. Minseo closed her eyes. Junho trusts him. They've been friends since university. James was at his father's funeral. He was there after the accident in the hospital for weeks. I know. I'm sorry. If you're wrong, I'm not wrong. I wish I was. Minseo looked at her for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone, unlocked it, opened a folder. I need to show you something. She handed the phone to Zuri. Scanned documents, medical reports. Police files marked case closed. 5 years ago, Minseo said quietly. Junho was in a car accident. Official report said mechanical failure. Brakes failed on a mountain road. He survived, but the optic nerve damage was catastrophic, irreversible. Zuri's chest tightened as she scrolled through the medical terminology, the x-rays, the documentation of a life forever changed. I'm sorry, she said. But what does... It wasn't an accident. Minseo's voice was steel wrapped in silk. It was sabotage. Someone cut the brake line. The police opened an investigation. Found evidence. Witness statements from the mechanic who said someone paid him $50 million won in cash. Who? The case was shut down within 48 hours. Corporate pressure. High-level interference. The mechanic recanted. The evidence disappeared. The lead detective got transferred to Jeju Island. Zuri felt the ground tilt beneath her. Someone tried to kill him. And walked away clean. Does Junho know? He suspects. But suspicion without proof is just paranoia. And paranoia destroys credibility faster than blindness ever could. Zuri stared at the medical report. Black and white proof that someone had stolen Junho's sight and walked away clean, probably celebrated at the next board meeting. Why are you telling me this? Zuri asked. Because you're the first person who might actually care enough to help him fight back. Everyone else just wants to use him or remove him. That night, Zuri went to Junho's office. It was late, past 11. The building was empty except for security and the hum of servers in the basement and cleaning crews that moved like ghosts through the corridors. She knocked. Come in. Junho was at his desk, laptop open, screen reader speaking lines of code in rapid Korean. He paused it when she entered, head tilting toward her footsteps. Zuri, it's late. We need to talk. He gestured to the chair across from him. She sat, setting her tablet on the desk between them like evidence in a trial. I found the leak, she said. It's James. Junho's expression didn't change. Not a flicker. I know. She blinked. You... No. I've known for 3 weeks. I was waiting to see if you'd find it too. If your investigation would lead to the same conclusion. Why didn't you fire him? Because I needed to know who he was feeding information to. What the endgame was. How deep it went. Junho leaned back. And now I do. Thanks to you. Zuri leaned back, reassessing everything. You're playing chess with everyone, aren't you? I'm playing survival, Junho said quietly. There's a difference. Chess is a game. This is my life. Minseo told me about the accident. His jaw tightened. She shouldn't have. She trusts me, and apparently she thinks you need someone on your side who knows the whole truth. Do you trust me, Zuri? The question hung in the air like smoke, thick and unavoidable. Zuri met his gaze, or where she thought it was, where his face was turned toward her. I don't know yet, but I'm trying. Fair. He stood, walked to the window with the confidence of someone who'd made this walk 1,000 times. Seoul glittered below. A city of light he couldn't see but knew intimately. I hired you because I needed someone who wasn't already compromised. Everyone in this building has a price. A pressure point. A reason to betray me. You don't. You don't know that. I do. He turned. You described a sunset to a stranger for no reason other than he asked. No payment, no angle, no strategy. That's not someone who can be bought. That's someone who still believes the world is worth describing. Her throat burned. Junho, I'm not asking you to trust me, he said. I'm asking you to finish the job. Find out who's behind James. Who's orchestrating this. Find out who's trying to destroy this company. And when you do, I'll make sure they pay. Zuri stood. Walked to the window beside him. Their reflections overlapped in the glass. 2 people standing in the dark, looking at light they needed to believe in. And then? She asked. After we find them, after we win or lose, what happens then? Then you go back to your life, back to New York or London or wherever the next crisis takes you, and I go back to mine. Is that what you want? He didn't answer. Outside, the city breathed. Inside, the silence stretched until it hurt. Finally, Junho spoke. No. Zuri closed her eyes. Me neither. But neither of them moved. Because moving meant crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. And once crossed, there was no going back to professional distance and careful boundaries. Diane Chen didn't believe in coincidences. So when her best friend, Zuri Maddox, the woman who lived and breathed corporate war zones, who answered emails at 3 a.m., and mediated crises like some people meditated, started dodging calls and sending one-word texts, Diane knew something was catastrophically wrong. Or very, very right. She showed up at Zuri's hotel at 7 a.m. with 2 coffees and an interrogation-ready expression. "Talk," Diane said, handing over the Americano. Zuri sighed, accepting the coffee like a peace offering. "I'm working." "You're always working. But you're never evasive. You answer in 3 sentences or less, complete with data points. This week I've gotten fine and busy and later. So spill." Zuri looked at her friend. Black bob cut in an asymmetrical style that looked accidental, but cost $300. Sharp glasses, leather jacket over a faded Radiohead tee, the uniform of someone who made billionaires nervous and senators sweat. Diane was an investigative journalist specializing in corporate corruption. She'd taken down 3 CEOs in the last 2 years alone. Her articles had triggered federal investigations, shareholder lawsuits, and at least 1 suicide that wasn't officially ruled a suicide. And she'd been investigating Lumina Technologies for 6 months. Zuri hadn't told her. "It's complicated," Zuri said finally. Diane's eyes narrowed. "Does this have to do with Lumina?" Zuri's silence was answer enough. "Oh my God." Diane sat down hard on the hotel bed. "You're working for them, for the company I'm investigating. The company I'm about to expose in a 10,000-word feature. I'm working for the truth. Zuri, I've been digging into that company for half a year. There's something rotten at the core. Shell companies in the Caymans. Stock manipulation that would make Wall Street blush. And 5 years ago, their president, SEO Junho, had a very convenient accident right when certain board members wanted him out." Zuri's heart stopped. "What are you talking about?" Diane pulled out her tablet, the one that never left her side, the one loaded with enough evidence to destroy governments. Opened a folder labeled Lumina, embargoed. Police report, closed case, brake line cut, classic corporate hit, badly disguised as mechanical failure. Investigation shut down within 48 hours. Someone paid a lot of money to bury it. Who? I don't know yet. My source won't name names without corroboration. But he says it's someone internal, high level, family. Zuri felt the room tilt. Your source? Former board member, left under suspicious circumstances 3 years ago. He's willing to talk, but only off the record. He's terrified. Of who? Of Park Sung-jin, the chairman, Junho's uncle. Zuri set down her coffee before she dropped it. Why are you telling me this? Diane leaned forward. Because you're defending them. I can see it in your face. You're not just working for them, you care. So either they've manipulated you, which I don't believe because you're too smart for that, or... She paused. Or you're involved with someone there. It's not like that. Then what is it like? Zuri pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to hold back the pressure building behind them. I met him before I knew who he was. We talked. Once. On a rooftop. He asked me to describe a sunset, and I did. And it felt like I was seeing the world again for the first time in 3 years. Since Mom died. Since I forgot what it meant to just look at something without calculating its value. Diane's expression softened. Oh, Zuri. I know it's stupid. I know he's a client. I know every rule I'm breaking just by having this conversation. Do you love him? The question hit like a punch to the sternum. Zuri looked up. I don't know him well enough to love him. That's not a no. Diane, listen. Diane reached across the table, took Zuri's hands in hers. I've known you for 10 years, since grad school, since you were figuring out how to mediate disputes between your drunk roommates. You don't do feelings, you do facts, data, strategy, logic. The fact that you're sitting here looking like your heart is having a civil war means this is serious. It can't be serious. It's professional suicide, career ending, Credential destroying. Maybe. Diane squeezed her hands. But if he's the man you think he is, you need to know the truth about him. All of it. Not the version he's selling, not the version his PR team crafted, the real truth. And I can help. How? My source, the former board member. He's willing to talk. He says he has proof of who ordered the hit on Junho. Meeting notes, recordings, the whole conspiracy. Zuri's pulse spiked. When? Tomorrow, 7 p.m. Quiet cafe in Itaewon, far from corporate Seoul. He won't come to Gangnam. Diane, I'm doing this because I love you, Diane said fiercely. And because if this guy is using you, if he's playing you like everyone else in that building, I'm going to burn him to the ground and salt the earth. But if he's real, if he's actually the one person in 5 years who sees you the way you deserve to be seen, who makes you want to describe sunsets again, she smiled. Then I'll help you save him. Both of you. Psych. The next night, Zuri met Diane at a small cafe in Itaewon, far from the corporate towers of Gangnam, in a neighborhood where expats and locals mixed, and nobody cared about corporate hierarchies. The former board member was in his 60s, gray hair, tired eyes, hands that shook slightly as he slid a manila folder across the scarred wooden table. This is everything I have, he said quietly, voice rough with age and fear. Board meeting transcripts, financial transfers, and a recording I made at the last meeting I attended before I was forced out. Zuri opened the folder. Inside, minutes from a closed-door meeting 5 years ago, 3 months before Junho's accident. The subject line made her blood run cold. Emergency session. Succession planning. She scanned the names present. Park Sung-jin, chairman. 3 other senior executives whose names she recognized from current board meetings. And buried in the notes, a single line. Mechanical intervention approved. Minimize traceability. Proceed with caution. Diane's source pressed play on a small digital recorder, the kind journalists use for interviews. A voice crackled through. Male, authoritative, cold. He's too young, too idealistic. He'll destroy what we built. This company is a machine and he wants to turn it into a charity. We need to act before he consolidates power. Another voice, younger, uncertain but complicit. And if the intervention doesn't work, if he survives, then we try again, or we use the disability against him. Either way, he doesn't keep the presidency. Zuri's hands went numb. That's Park Sung-jin, the source said, pointing at the recorder. And the second voice is James Kang, Junho's lawyer, his college friend, the man he trusts most in the world. Diane looked at Zuri, saw her face. I'm sorry. Zuri couldn't breathe, couldn't process. Junho's uncle, his best friend. The people closest to him. They'd tried to kill him. And when that didn't work completely, when he survived but lost his sight, they'd been planning for 5 years to finish the job with corporate weapons instead of mechanical ones. Why are you giving this to me? Zuri asked, voice barely above a whisper. The source met her eyes, and she saw genuine pain there. Because I liked Junho's father. He built that company to help people, real people. The first prosthetic limb Lumina ever made went to a child in rural Korea who couldn't afford medical care. They gave it for free. That's what the company was supposed to be. And I watched his brother, Sung-jin, destroy that vision piece by piece, turn it into a profit machine that happens to help people as a side effect. Someone needs to stop him. Why not go to the police? With what? A recording that can't be authenticated in court? Notes that could be fabricated? I tried, 5 years ago, after the accident. I gave them everything. Within a week, the case was closed. The detective investigating was transferred. My house was broken into. Nothing stolen, just a message. I left the board 3 months later with a severance agreement that included an NDA. He stood. But you're a mediator. You have access, credibility. And Junho trusts you. Use it. He left. disappearing into the Seoul night like smoke. Zuri sat there, staring at the folder, the weight of it crushing. Diane touched her shoulder. "What are you going to do?" Zuri looked up, and Diane saw something in her friend's eyes she'd never seen before. Not fear, not doubt. Pure, focused rage. "I'm going to end this," Zuri said quietly. "All of it." The headline dropped at 6:02 a.m. on a Tuesday. Blind CEO unable to lead, Lumina Technologies board considers emergency removal. Byline, Seoul Business Daily. Zuri saw it on her phone before she even got out of bed, the push notification lighting up her dark hotel room like an alarm. Her stomach dropped. The article was brutal, surgical, designed to destroy. Anonymous sources within Lumina Technologies have raised serious concerns about President Seo Joon-ho's ability to fulfill executive responsibilities. "He can't read financial reports in real time," one board member stated on condition of anonymity. "He relies entirely on staff interpretation. How can shareholders trust that he's making informed decisions?" The company's stock price has fallen 18% in the last quarter, prompting questions about leadership stability. "We respect his courage," another source added, "but respect doesn't run a billion-dollar company. At some point, compassion becomes liability." It was a hit piece. Coordinated. Leaked. Designed to destroy public confidence in 48 hours, just before the quarterly earnings call. Zuri called Minseo. "I know," Minseo said, before Zuri could speak. "He's already read it. Screen reader. Every word." "Where is he?" "His office. He won't talk to anyone. He sent me away." Zuri grabbed her coat. "I'm coming." Joon-ho sat at his desk, laptop open, screen reader silent now, the article already memorized. Zuri knocked once and walked in without waiting for permission. "Joon-ho." He didn't look up. "You saw it. Everyone saw it. It's trending on 3 platforms." He closed the laptop with deliberate care, leaned back in his chair. For the first time since she'd met him, his mask cracked completely. He looked tired, defeated, human, young, despite the gray beginning to show at his temples. "They're going to win," he said quietly. "No, they're not. Zuri, they control the media, the board, the narrative. I can fight numbers. I'm good at numbers. I can fight strategy, but I can't fight perception. And perception says a blind man can't run a company, no matter how good the results are." She walked around the desk, sat on the edge, facing him, close enough to touch. "Then we change the perception." He laughed bitterly. "How? By proving I'm not blind? That's the one miracle I can't perform. By proving you're the best thing that ever happened to this company. By showing the world what I found. The data, the strategy, the truth." He tilted his head toward her. "What did you find?" "Proof," Zuri said, pulling out her tablet. "That every major decision you made in the last 5 years saved this company. That every decision the board tried to overrule would have tanked it. Measurable proof. Profit margins, market share, innovation metrics, and that the man behind this hit piece is the same man who tried to kill you 5 years ago." Joon-ho went completely still. "What are you talking about?" Zuri pulled out the folder Diane's source had given her, set it on the desk between them like a grenade. Diane found a source, former board member. He has meeting notes from 5 years ago, a recording. Your uncle, Joon-ho, and James, planning the accident, planning your removal. Let me hear it. She pressed play. The voices filled the office, cold, calculating, discussing his death like a budget line item. When it ended, Joon-ho sat in silence for a long moment. Then he stood, walked to the window, pressed his forehead against the cold glass like he was trying to absorb its clarity. "I knew," he said finally. "I knew it was him. But knowing and proving are different universes. I've been living in the knowing for 5 years. Alone. You're not alone now. This recording isn't admissible in court. It doesn't have to be. We're not going to court. We're going to war. Corporate war. The kind you win in boardrooms, not courtrooms. Junho turned. What do you mean? Zuri smiled. Sharp, dangerous. The smile of someone who'd just seen the whole chessboard. We're going to give your uncle exactly what he wants. A board meeting, a public vote on your leadership, full transparency, media present, and then we're going to destroy him in front of everyone. How? With the truth, with the numbers, with me, and with the fact that removing you destroys the company he's supposedly trying to save. Junho walked toward her, stopped close enough that she could feel the heat of him, smell his cologne mixed with coffee and exhaustion. Why are you doing this? Because someone has to. That's not an answer. Zuri looked up at him. Because 3 weeks ago, you asked me to describe a sunset, and no one's asked me to see the world, really see it, in 3 years. You gave me that back. So now I'm giving you this. Junho reached out slowly, telegraphing the movement, found her hand, held it like it was the only solid thing in a collapsing universe. If we do this, he said quietly, there's no going back. They'll come after you too. Your reputation, your career, everything. Let them try. He smiled. Small, real, the rooftop smile. Stubborn light. Damn right. James Kang walked into Junho's office at exactly 3 p.m. The next day, carrying his signature leather briefcase and an expression of practiced concern that probably worked on juries and board members, but looked transparent to Zuri. Junho, I heard about the article. I'm so sorry. Outrageous journalism. We need to talk strategy immediately. Junho sat behind his desk, hands interlaced, sunglasses on despite being indoors. Zuri stood by the window, tablet in hand, silent as a witness. Strategy, Junho repeated slowly. Yes, let's talk about that. James set down his briefcase, popping it open with practiced efficiency. I've been in touch with some key board members. There's a way out of this. A compromise that protects everyone. I'm listening. You step down as president, become chairman emeritus, ceremonial role, full salary, all the honors and respect, none of the operational pressure. You'd still be the face of the company, still attend events, but the day-to-day management goes to someone the board trusts. It's the dignified exit. Junho tilted his head. Exit. Yes, transition, evolution. It's the best option for all stakeholders. For who, specifically? James blinked, smile faltering. For you. For the company. For everyone invested in Lumina's success. Not for me, Junho said quietly. For you. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. James forced a smile, but it looked like a crack in a porcelain mask. Junho, what are you? How much did my uncle pay you? James went pale. Actually pale. His carefully maintained tan couldn't hide it. Junho, I don't understand what you're implying. To leak the Q3 projections, to feed insider intelligence to the Hong Kong firm, to orchestrate the media campaign, to write that article under an anonymous byline. Junho's voice was surgical, precise, each word a scalpel. How much? That's insane. I would never... 2 million USD, Zuri said from the window, not looking up from her tablet. Transferred in 3 installments over 6 months. Offshore account in your wife's maiden name. Sloppy tradecraft, James. You should have used at least 5 shell companies, not 2. James turned to her, fury breaking through the professional mask. You have no idea what you're talking about. You're a mediator, not a forensic accountant. I'm both when I need to be. She finally looked up, met his eyes. I have bank records, server logs, email metadata, keycard timestamps that match perfectly with unauthorized system access, and a recording of you and Park Sung-jin planning this exact scenario 5 years ago. James's face went white as printer paper. Junho stood slowly, using the desk for orientation. You were my friend. We studied together. You were at my father's funeral. You sat in the hospital for 3 weeks after the accident, telling me everything would be okay. I was trying to protect you. James's voice cracked, the careful lawyer facade shattering. You were going to destroy the company with your idealism. Your father built an empire, and you wanted to turn it into a charity case. Free prosthetics for children who can't pay? Subsidized accessibility software? That's not a business model. That's philanthropy masquerading as capitalism. My father built this company to help people. You turned it into a weapon. I saved it. Your vision would have bankrupted us in 5 years. My vision created the only division that's profitable. 64% of revenue, James. The assistive tech sector. The thing you called a charity case is the only thing keeping this company alive. James grabbed his briefcase, hands shaking. If you expose this, if you make this public, the company crashes. Stock tanks. Thousands lose their jobs. You'll destroy everything just to prove a point about loyalty. No, Junho said, voice hard as steel. I'll rebuild it. Without you. Without my uncle. Without everyone who thinks profit is more important than purpose. Minseo appeared in the doorway with perfect timing, 2 security guards flanking her like silent sentinels. Mr. Kang, please come with us. Your access credentials have been revoked. You have 15 minutes to collect personal items from your office under supervision. James looked between them. Junho standing firm. Zuri with her evidence. Minseo with security. He was cornered, and he knew it. You're making a mistake, James said. But his voice had lost its conviction. I made one, Junho replied. 5 years ago, when I trusted you after you helped plan my murder. The word hung in the air. Murder. James flinched. It was never supposed to. We didn't mean for. You meant for me to die. When that failed, you settled for destroying my career instead. Get out of my building. Security escorted him out. The door closed with a soft click that sounded like a gavel. When the office was empty again, Junho sat down heavily, removed his sunglasses, rubbed his eyes. Zuri crossed the room, knelt beside his chair. You okay? He shook his head. No, but I will be. She took his hand. 1 down. 1 to go. That night, Minseo found Zuri in the parking garage, about to leave after another 16-hour day. Ms. Maddox, wait. Zuri turned. Minseo looked uncharacteristically shaken. Her perfect composure cracked at the edges. I need to tell you something, Minseo said, glancing around the empty garage as if walls had ears. About Junho. About why he's really doing this. Why he can't just walk away. I know why. No, you don't. Minseo pulled a file from her bag. Physical paper, not digital, the kind that doesn't leave traces. This is his father's will, and the company charter. Read Section 7, Subsection 3. Zuri opened it under the fluorescent garage lights. Read. Her breath caught. If Junho steps down or is removed before age 40, Minseo explained, her voice tight, control of the company reverts to the board of directors, specifically to the chairman, Park Sung-jin. But if he stays? At 40, he gains irrevocable majority control. 60% voting shares that can't be diluted or transferred. The board becomes purely advisory. He can't be removed except for criminal conviction. Zuri looked up from the document. How long until he turns 40? 11 months. 3 weeks. 2 days. So Sung-jin has less than a year to force him out, or he loses everything. Exactly. That's why the attacks are escalating. That's why the media campaign. That's why James turned on him. Sung-jin is running out of time, which makes him desperate, and desperate men do desperate things. Zuri closed the file carefully. Why are you telling me this now? Minseo met her eyes. Because Junho won't. He'll protect you by keeping you at a distance, by maintaining professional boundaries even when his heart is bleeding. But you need to know what you're walking into. If you stay, if you really help him fight this, Sung-jin will come after you. Hard. He'll attack your reputation, your credibility, maybe worse. I'm not leaving. Why not? You could walk away, finish the mediation, file a report, collect your fee, move on to the next crisis. You don't owe him anything. Zuri smiled, small but fierce. I'm the stubborn light that holds on when everything else gives up. He said that about the sunset. Turns out he was describing me. Minseo almost laughed, a sound of relief and recognition. He said that exact thing about you. Did he? Every day for 3 weeks after you met. The woman on the rooftop who sees stubborn light. I thought it was a metaphor. Then I met you, and realized he was being literal. Zuri's heart did something complicated in her chest. He's in love with me, isn't he? Desperately, completely. The kind of love that rewrites everything. Minseo stepped closer. But he won't say it. Not until this is over. Because he won't let you choose him while he's still a liability, while loving him could destroy your career. Too late, Zuri said quietly. I already chose. Minseo nodded slowly. Then you need to know one more thing. My younger brother died 3 years ago. Industrial accident. Faulty equipment that the company knew was faulty, but didn't replace because it would hurt quarterly earnings. Junho wasn't president yet. He was VP of operations. He found out, tried to stop it, got overruled by the board. My brother died 2 weeks later. Zuri's throat tightened. Minseo, I'm so sorry. Junho came to the funeral. Not as a VP. As a human. He cried with me. Promised that when he had power, he'd change everything. And he did. Every safety protocol. Every equipment standard. He cost the company $40 million in upgrades. The board hated him for it. But no one else died. She looked at Zuri with fierce intensity. That's who he is. Not the president. Not the blind CEO. The man who keeps promises even when they cost him everything. Don't let them destroy him. I won't, Zuri promised. Minseo touched her shoulder briefly. For what it's worth, you're the first person I've seen him trust in 5 years. Don't waste it. She walked to her car, leaving Zuri standing alone in the fluorescent silence. Zuri went to the rooftop at 11 p.m., telling herself it was to think, to plan, to process everything Minseo had told her. But really, she was hoping. It was raining. Not the dramatic downpour of movies, but the soft, persistent rain that Seoul does best. The kind that soaks you slowly while you're not paying attention. The city glittered below like a circuit board, all light and logic. She heard the tap of a cane before she saw him. Junho emerged from the stairwell, folding the cane with practiced movements, rain already soaking his shirt, turning the white fabric translucent. I thought I'd find you here, he said. Predictable? Hopeful. He walked toward her, navigating the wet concrete with confidence. I've been coming here every night since you told me to stay away. Pathetic, probably. Not pathetic. Persistent. They stood on opposite sides of the rooftop, rain between them like a curtain. Minseo told you, Junho said. Not a question. About your birthday, about the will, about what's really at stake. I was going to tell you. When? After we win? After I'm gone? After it doesn't matter anymore? After I stop being a weapon pointed at you. He took a step closer. Everyone close to me gets hurt, Zuri. My father, Minseo's brother, James. Before he betrayed me, he was a good person. This place, this company, this fight, it corrupts everything it touches. I'm not afraid of corruption. You should be. Zuri crossed the distance between them, rain plastering her hair to her face, her coat heavy with water. Stopped directly in front of him. You're not a weapon, she said fiercely. You're a man who asked me to describe a sunset, who listened like my words mattered, who made me want to see the world again after 3 years of just surviving it. Junho reached out, fingers finding her face, tracing the path of rain down her cheek. I don't have the right to ask you to stay, to risk everything you've built. Then don't ask. I'm staying anyway. Why? Because 3 weeks ago you thanked me for lending you my eyes without treating you as less, and I realized You were the first person in years who saw me as more, not as the fixer, not as the woman who solves impossible problems, just as someone worth talking to about sunsets. His hand stilled against her face. Zuri, I lost my mother 3 years ago, she said, the words spilling out like a confession. Alzheimer's, early onset, 49 years old, and her mind just left. The last 6 months she didn't recognize my face, didn't remember my name, but I described the world to her anyway. Every day. The sky, the trees, the way light moved across her hospital room, and the sunset. That was her favorite. For those 10 minutes, she'd smile. Really smile. Like she was still in there somewhere. Junho's breath hitched. When she died, I stopped looking at sunsets, because it hurt too much to see something beautiful and have no one to tell, no one who needed my eyes. Zuri's voice cracked. But then you asked, and I looked again. And for the first time in 3 years, I wanted to see the world, because you reminded me that describing it is also being alive in it. Junho pulled her into his arms, held her like she was the only solid thing in a storm, like letting go meant drowning. I'm in love with you, he said into her rain-soaked hair. I have been since the first sunset, since you said the sky was holding fire with silk gloves. And I don't care if it's professional suicide or public scandal or the worst decision I've ever made. I'm in love with you, and I'm tired of pretending I'm not. Zuri pulled back just enough to look at his face. Rain and streetlight and raw truth. His eyes unfocused, but somehow seeing her more clearly than anyone ever had. Then stop pretending, she whispered, and kissed him. The city disappeared. The rain became music. The cold became warmth. For 30 seconds, there was no board, no uncle, no conspiracy, no careers at stake. Just two people who found each other in the space between rooftops and empires and decided that some things were worth the fall. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Junho smiled. Really smiled, the expression transforming his face. What does the sky look like now? He asked. Zuri looked up, laughed, the sound bright against the rain. Dark, stormy, stubborn as hell. Perfect. Diane called it 2 a.m., which meant it was either urgent or she'd found something that couldn't wait for daylight. I have something. You need to see it now. Zuri met her at an all-night cafe in Hongdae, the kind of place where insomniacs and artists overlapped at 3 a.m., where nobody questioned why two women were huddled over a laptop with the intensity of conspiracy theorists. Diane handed her a USB drive. My source came through. This is the full recording. Not the excerpt I played before. The entire meeting. 43 minutes. Zuri plugged it into her laptop, headphones on, pressed play. The voices were clearer this time. Park Sung-jin, James Kang, two other executives whose voices she'd learned to recognize from board meetings. The accident needs to look clean. Mechanical failure, no witnesses, no loose ends. And if he survives, then we regroup. But the goal is permanent removal. A blind CEO is better than a living martyr, but a dead president is best for everyone. You mean? I mean we do what's necessary to protect this company from his reckless vision. His father understood business. The son understands charity. We can't build an empire on compassion. Zuri felt physically sick, bile rising in her throat. The recording continued. Discussion of brake lines, payment methods, how to ensure the mechanics stayed quiet, how to control the police investigation, how to spin the narrative if anything went wrong. It was premeditated, calculated, evil in a suit. They tried to murder him, Zuri said, pulling off the headphones. Not hurt, not scare, murder. And they'll try again if you don't stop them, Diane said quietly. This recording won't hold up in court. No chain of custody, no verified source, recorded without consent in a one-party consent jurisdiction. But in the court of public opinion, in a board meeting, it's a nuclear bomb. If I release this, it destroys the company. Stock crashes. Thousands lose jobs. Suppliers go bankrupt. Everything Junho's trying to save burns to the ground. If you don't, Sungjin wins, and Junho loses everything. Zuri stared at the screen, at the audio waveform that represented pure malice. There has to be another way. There is. Diane leaned forward, voice low and serious. You use it as leverage. You don't release it publicly. You threaten to. You walk into that board meeting and you make Park Sungjin understand that if he doesn't step down quietly, this goes public. He loses everything: reputation, legacy, possibly freedom if prosecutors decide to reopen the investigation. That's blackmail. That's justice. Sometimes they look the same. Zuri closed the laptop. I need to talk to Junho. He'll try to protect you, try to keep you clean. I don't want clean. I want to win. She went to his apartment at 4 a.m. Knocked. He answered in sweats and a t-shirt, hair disheveled, eyes tired but alert. Zuri, it's 4 a.m. I know. I'm sorry. But you need to hear this. They sat on his minimalist couch, gray fabric, clean lines, the apartment of someone who prioritized function over form. She played the recording, all 43 minutes. When it ended, Junho sat in silence for what felt like an eternity. That's my uncle's voice, he said finally, each word carefully controlled. And James. And Park Min-jae and Choi Sung-ho from the board. Yes. They tried to kill me. Not remove me from office. Kill me. Yes. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, head in his hands. I knew. I've known for 5 years. But hearing them discuss my death like a budget allocation. Zuri touched his shoulder, felt the tension coiled there. We can use this. We can end him. How? Leverage. We walk into the board meeting tomorrow. We present the financials, proof that you've saved the company. And then we tell Sungjin privately, step down, or this recording goes public. He resigns quietly, keeps his reputation mostly intact, avoids criminal investigation. Junho looked up, turned toward her voice. That's extortion. That's survival. It's not justice. They tried to murder me and we let them walk away. Justice is a luxury, Zuri said carefully. Right now, we need a win. We need you to keep the company. Everything else is secondary. Junho stood abruptly, walked to the window, pressed his forehead against the glass like he was trying to absorb its coldness, its clarity. If we do this, he said slowly, we become like them. We use fear and threats instead of truth. No, we use their own weapons against them. There's a difference. Is there? Zuri stood, crossed to him. Junho, I need you to listen to me. Really listen. If we go public with this, we might get justice. Sungjin might face criminal charges, but the company burns. Every employee loses their job. Every person depending on your assistive technology loses access. The children getting free prosthetics, the accessibility software going to developing countries, all of it ends. Is that justice? He was quiet. Or, she continued, we make him disappear. Quietly. Completely. You keep the company. You keep building what your father started. You help millions of people. And Sungjin spends the rest of his life knowing he lost. That's not legal justice. But it might be real justice. Junho turned to her. And if he calls our bluff, if he refuses to step down, then we release it, and let the world decide. He crossed the room, found her, took her face in his hands. I don't want you to do this for me. I don't want you compromised. I'm not. I'm doing it for the company, for the people who depend on it. She covered his hands with hers. And yes, for you. Because you deserve to win. He kissed her. Soft. Desperate. A kiss that tasted like surrender and determination in equal measure. Okay. he whispered against her lips. We end him. The emergency board meeting was called for 9 a.m. on Thursday. Every board member, every senior executive, legal counsel, and, at Junho's specific request, 3 business journalists from major publications. Transparency, he'd said. Accountability. Sung Jin had tried to block the media presence. The board overruled him 6-3. The cracks were showing. Zuri walked in with Junho and Min Seo, a triangle formation that looked more like a military advance than a corporate meeting. She wore her sharpest suit, black, tailored, armor disguised as fashion. Junho wore charcoal gray, no sunglasses this time, making direct eye contact with nothing, and somehow still commanding every inch of space. The conference room was arctic. Park Sung-jin sat at the far end of the table, surrounded by his remaining allies, expression smug despite everything. He thought he'd won. Shall we begin? Sung-jin said, voice smooth as oil. Junho took his seat at the opposite end. Zuri stood beside him, tablet ready. Let's, Junho said. Sung-jin stood, buttoning his jacket with performative precision. I've called this meeting to address a matter of urgent concern to all stakeholders. Recent events have made it abundantly clear that President Seo is unable to fulfill his duties. The media scandal, the stock decline, the loss of investor confidence, these are not aberrations. They're symptoms of fundamental leadership failure. He pulled out a document. I'm proposing an immediate vote for President Seo's removal and transition to an honorary advisory position. This protects his dignity while ensuring operational stability. Murmurs around the table. Some supportive. Some uncertain. Junho didn't react. Zuri stood. Before we vote, I'd like to present my findings, as the independent mediator hired by this board. Sung-jin waved dismissively. We don't need... You hired me, Zuri interrupted, voice cutting through the room like a blade. You'll hear my report, unless you'd like me to note in the official record that you attempted to suppress independent findings? The journalist in the back row perked up, pens ready. Sung-jin sat down, jaw tight. Proceed. Zuri opened her tablet, projected a presentation onto the large screen. In the last 5 years, President Seo made 73 major strategic decisions. Of those, 61 were initially opposed by the board. She advanced the slide. Of those 61 contested decisions, 47 proved profitable within 18 months. That's a 77% success rate. She let that sink in. The board's override recommendations? Next slide. 32% success rate. In other words, when President Seo disagreed with the board, he was right more than twice as often. Silence. She advanced again. The Assistive Technology Division, President Seo's flagship initiative, the one this board tried to defund 3 times, now accounts for 64% of total company revenue. Every other division has either stagnated or declined under board-recommended leadership. Another slide. Contract lists, partnership agreements, government deals. If you remove President Seo, you lose contracts with 3 international governments, 4 major NGOs, and 16 private sector partners, all of whom have publicly stated they work with Lumina because of his vision and leadership. I have written confirmations from each. Sung-jin's face was red. Numbers can be manipulated. Can they? Zuri pulled up a final slide. A network diagram of offshore transactions, shell companies, stock sales, money flowing like blood from a wound. This is a map of strategic information leaks over the last 6 months. Confidential data sold to competitors and short sellers, all traced back to 2 sources within this company. She locked eyes with Sung-jin. One was James Kang, former legal counsel, now removed and facing potential criminal charges. The other... The room held its breath. The other is Chairman Park Sung-jin. Explosion. Board members shouting, lawyers conferring, journalists scribbling frantically. Sung-jin stood, face purple with rage. This is absurd. I would never. You have no proof. I have bank records, Zuri said calmly. Server logs. email metadata, and security footage of you meeting with representatives from the Hong Kong firm in question. Twice. In this building. She advanced the slide. There he was. Caught on camera. Undeniable. You sold short positions on your own company's stock. You leaked confidential projections to devalue shares, then bought them back at a discount. You orchestrated a media campaign to discredit your own nephew. And 5 years ago, she paused, looked at Junho. He stood, removed his sunglasses completely, faced the room with blind eyes that somehow saw everything. 5 years ago, Junho said quietly, my uncle tried to have me killed. The room went dead silent. We have audio recordings, Zuri continued, from a board meeting where the plan was discussed, where my accident, the one that caused my blindness, was referred to as mechanical intervention, where my death was calculated as acceptable collateral damage to protect board interests. She held up the USB drive. This recording names 4 people. 3 are in this room. Every eye turned to Sung Jin. He looked around the table, saw no allies, only predators smelling blood, calculating distance from the explosion, protecting themselves. This is a coup, he said, voice shaking. A coordinated attack. No, Junho replied, voice like steel. This is a reckoning. Zuri stepped forward. Chairman Park, you have 2 options. 1, you resign, effective immediately. You forfeit your shares, your board seat, your titles. You sign a comprehensive NDA and you disappear from public life. 2, we release everything. The recordings, the financial crimes, the attempted murder, and you spend whatever years you have left in courtrooms and possibly prison. Sungjin's hands shook. He looked at the board. No one met his eyes. You're bluffing, he said, but his voice cracked. Junho smiled, cold, final. Try me, uncle. I've spent 5 years in darkness because of you. I have nothing left to lose and everything to gain. Test me. The silence stretched. Finally, Sungjin spoke, each word like pulling teeth. I want full immunity, written guarantees. You get obscurity, Junho said. That's all. Take it or face the consequences. Sungjin looked at the journalists, at the board, at his nephew standing in front of the entire world, blind but unbowed. He stood, straightened his tie with trembling hands. I resign, effective immediately, and walked out. The room exhaled collectively. Junho turned to the board. Anyone else want to discuss my capability to lead? No one spoke. Good. Meeting adjourned. And after the meeting, after the journalists left and the board members scattered like startled birds, Zuri found Junho in his office, standing at the window. You did it, she said. We did it. She walked to him, stood beside him, their reflections overlapping in the glass. What now? Now we rebuild. He turned to her. I want you to stay, not as a consultant, as chief strategy officer, full equity, full authority. Help me turn this company into what it was supposed to be. Zuri's breath caught. Junho, I'm not asking as a client, or even as a man who's in love with you. I'm asking as someone who trusts you to see what I can't, literally and figuratively. She smiled. That's a terrible job pitch. Is it working? Maybe. He took her hand. Stay. Help me build something that matters. Something my father would be proud of. Something that helps people instead of just profiting from them. On one condition. Anything. No more lies. No more omissions. No more protecting me by keeping me in the dark. If we're doing this, professionally, personally, all of it, we do it with complete transparency. Deal. She kissed him. Then I'm staying. Minseo appeared in the doorway, smiling for the first time in what might have been years. The board is requesting a formal vote to confirm Junho's position. They want it on record. Unanimous support. Junho nodded. Schedule it. When Minseo left, Zuri asked, Do you think it's really over? The war with Sungjin? Yes. The work of rebuilding trust? That's just beginning. He squeezed her hand. But I have you. So I think we'll manage. 3 months later, the Hung'an Complex rooftop at sunset, the sky performing its nightly masterpiece. Zuri leaned against the parapet, watching the sky bleed gold and pink and stubborn amber that refused to fade quietly. Junho stood beside her, no sunglasses, cane folded in his pocket, completely at ease. "Tell me," he said. She smiled. This had become their ritual. Every Thursday evening, no matter how busy, they came here. The sky is holding fire with silk gloves, gold layered on pink layered on something that can't decide if it's orange or regret, or maybe hope. There's a sliver of light above the river that refuses to quit, even though everything around it is surrendering to night. Stubborn. Just like us. He turned to her. I never thanked you. Not properly. For what? For seeing me before you knew who I was. For staying when you knew. For fighting when everyone else would have run. Zuri took his hand, laced their fingers together. You gave me my sunsets back. You reminded me that describing the world means being alive in it. That's worth more than you know. They stood in silence as the light faded, as Seoul's lights began their evening awakening below. What happens next? Junho asked. We build. We fight when we have to. We survive. We help people. Together. Always. The last thread of gold dissolved into indigo. The city began its nightly transformation from daylight capital to electric dream. And 2 people who found each other on a rooftop between empires decided to stay. Not because it was easy, not because it was safe, but because some connections, the ones that make you see the world again, the ones that turn strangers into soulmates over a sunset, are worth every risk. Junho pulled her close. Same time next week? Every week, Zuri promised, until we run out of sunsets. He smiled. I don't think that's possible. And as the stubborn light finally surrendered tonight, they stayed on the rooftop, describing the world to each other, building their future one sunset at a time.